So how many of you know a couple, they've been married for a long time, and it really looks like they still love each other? Anybody? Almost one at every table. So this table back here, why do you think that couple has stayed in love, quote, in love for so long?
Well, Joanne's actually been married 40 years, so we went with her.
She's been married to that guy for 40 years? You are a lucky man, Santiago. That's awesome. And what'd you come up with?
She said that they communicate a lot, they tell the truth, say sorry.
That's good. How about
He says sorry more than I do.
did y'all hear that? Yeah. We know it's true. How about this table over here? Did y'all raise your hand? Why do you think that couple that one of you knows has stayed in love for so long?
I think a lot of it's communication. They just apologize to each other and talk through a lot of difficult times.
Interesting. This table? Y'all didn't raise your hand. This table? Anybody raise your hand at that table? Yeah? What'd y'all come up with?
Well, we thought the couple stayed together because Renee Kraft's very patient.
I could not agree more. She is a very patient lady. You saying I've been married a long time? I was really going for that older person, that senior.
He's looking at you. Yeah.
That's how this is going to be, huh? I see how it's going to be. Let's just go to the next question, please, Terry. They're being mean to me.
But seriously though, you guys have been a good role model for a lot of people in this church.
I appreciate that.
You've been through a lot.
We have. Thank you. I appreciate that. How can two people, we all know people like this, stand at an altar, declare their undying love for each other, and then 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years later just hate each other?
Just what?
And go. Hate each other. Clont's table. Do you have an answer for that? What do you think?
There's a whole lot of different things. In the beginning, you get married for the wrong reason. Immaturity can play into it. Lack of spirituality plays into it. Later in life, you feel that you're not getting what you want out of a relationship. You immediately turn into self. It's about me at that point. And when it's about you, the other one has no chance. I mean, there's a lot of.
That's a lot. You just hit on a lot of really good reasons. How about this table right here? What'd y'all say?
We did.
You didn't say? Okay. Did you talk about that one? What'd you come up with?
And I think you hate where you're at. You don't necessarily hate each other. I think you hate what's happened.
Interesting.
Because at least for me, I just don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You hate yourself for what's happened.
Wow. That's good.
Good.
How about this table right here? What'd y'all say?
We said that after a certain time, they don't know who each other are if you put the kids in the center of their universe. Once the kids are gone, you're stuck with each other.
Interesting. All right, next slide, Terry. Why do couples who divorce fall in love with someone else and start a new relationship? How about this table, Husky, Boyle, Heine table? What'd y'all come up with?
I think that, I don't remember what we said, it's like a choice. You have to choose to stay in love. And it's, you get with somebody else in 5, 10, 15 road, it's gonna be, you're gonna be in the same, like, I'm tired of you. Again.
Yep.
People trying to fill a void, probably.
Yeah.
Fill a void. Yeah. Good. You guys?
We just were like, maybe it's like something new, kind of fresh. Adam was talking about the pursuit. You get a pursuit.
Man, I'm so glad you said that because that brings me to my next question. Why not? Next slide, Terry. Why not just fall in love with your spouse again? Huh? The thrill. The thrill of pursuing something. Interesting. Interesting. Last question for you. This should be a no-brainer, but we have to ask it. Next one. Is it possible? Oh, wait. That's a. Go to the next slide. And then we'll go back to that one. Is it possible to stay in love forever? Who said that? Did you say that? Wesley's so right. He said it's a choice. It's absolutely possible. So now go back to that picture of those super cool people. That is Papa and Fitzy. Mr. and Mrs. Gossett to you, Daniel. That's my mom's parents. They've been gone for about 10 years. But this is my very favorite picture of them. You can look at those two people. They've been married almost 70 years right there. That's how they always looked at each other. They genuinely loved each other more at this point in their life than they did when they were newlyweds. And they would tell you that. And they would talk about that. They are my example because they didn't have a perfect life. They didn't have a problem-free life. But they loved each other and were as or more in love with each other when they're in their 80s than when they got married in their 20s. So I believe, this will go 2 slides now, if you don't mind, Terry. I believe that it is completely possible to stay in love forever. I believe that all of us are candidates if we make the right choice. And as your pastor and friend, that's what I want for you. It is way easier to choose to work out whatever it is in your current marriage than it is to try to start a new one. There's way less baggage. There's way less pain. The best thing you can do is choose and learn to stay in love forever. And we're going to show you how in this class. So whether this is your first or your 5th marriage, I'm not here to condemn you. I do hope to give you some tools, and I do hope to give you some encouragement that the marriage you're in can be the marriage you die in, and be happy and satisfied and fulfilled and stay in love till you die. So to help me along, I have brought some friends tonight. I have brought Mr. and Mrs. Tumbler. Have y'all met Mr. and Mrs. Tumbler? This is them up here on the front table, at the front of my table. And I brought them along because they have something in common that you and I all have in common, and that is we all came to marriage with our own unique set of experiences, right? Maybe your parents' marriage, your grandparents' marriage, maybe who you dated in high school, who you dated in college, your job, the choices you make. How about an ex or a former or the used to? We all have these unique experiences that we bring to the table, we bring to our marriage, from failed relationships to disappointments to heartbreak to heartache. We all have a unique set of circumstances, a unique set of experiences that we bring to our marriage. You with me in that? Yours doesn't look like anyone else's. It's just yours. And like Mr. and Mrs. Tumbler, when you were dating and when they were dating, man, they were so careful just to keep all of that in there. To make sure that none of that got out of control. To put your best foot forward. You with me in this? You're chasing, that was our word over here, you're pursuing that person, and so you don't want to let on that you might have had, or that you did, or that there's some, so you keep this under control. And like you, at some point, they got married, and for about 10 minutes it was okay, but at some point in every marriage, Mr. and Mrs. Tumbler, like you, will bump into each other, right? Mr. Tumbler will do something dumb and bump into Mrs. Tumbler, or Mrs. Tumbler will say something and bump into Mr. Tumbler. And when you get bumped into, stuff comes out, right? All those experiences, all that stuff that you had, it comes out of you. Like, I didn't know you had anger issues. Well, I didn't know you were such a perfectionist. Why is your mom always involved in our marriage? I wasn't expecting that. You get married and you bump into each other and stuff comes out of you. And here's what's true for Mr. and Mrs. Tumbler, and probably true for you at some point in your marriage. Mr. Tumbler is totally convinced that the reason stuff keeps coming out of him is because Mrs. Tumbler keeps bumping into him. And Mrs. Tumbler is totally convinced that the reason stuff keeps coming out is because Mr. Tumbler keeps bumping into her. But you know better, right? Why does stuff keep coming out? When they keep bumping into each other, why does stuff keep coming out? Huh? It's full. What? The reason this stuff is coming out is because that's what's in there. Are you with me? The reason these experiences keep coming out is because those are the experiences that are in there. The reason these keep coming out is because that's what's in there. And the thing about marriage is this is where you get bumped the most. You get bumped at work, and you get bumped at school, and you get bumped with your kids. But the bumps that hurt the most and the bumps that happen the most are in your marriage. Anybody want to say amen to that? Because we all know it's true, right? We all know it's true. The reason stuff comes out is because that's what's in there. So here's a pro tip for you. It is really important for all of us to know what's in there. We have to know what's in us. This is part of learning to stay in love forever, because whatever is in you is going to come out of you whenever you get bumped, whenever there's a hardship, whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's a crossword, whenever there's something that happens, what's in you will come out of you. You with me? Okay. Solomon, who was the wisest human being to ever live, one day sat down and here's what he wrote. He said in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, above happiness, above security, above your retirement, above being financially secure, above Facebook likes and TikTok fame, above all else, make sure you're happy. No? No, it's not what it says. Go ahead and show them what it says, Terry. What it says is guard your heart. Above all else, guard your heart. Guard your heart. Because whatever is in you always comes out in the relationships that matter the most to you. Whatever is in your heart is always going to come out in the relationships that matter the most to you. And when stuff comes out of you, you tend to blame the other person. But the truth is, that's what's in you. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have a strategy to guard your heart? Like if somebody came up to you and said, you know, Jason, tonight, he said that Solomon said, above all else, guard your heart, so it's really important. How do I do that? Would you be able to answer them? You would? Tell me how. Okay. I love you, Blake. I want to. That's fair. Most of us do what? Forgive. The truth is, most of us don't have a strategy. If somebody came up to you and said, how do I guard my heart? Most of us would struggle to find an answer because we don't have a strategy. It's not something we think about. But if it's something we are to do above all else, we need a strategy. It's easier, this is why we don't have one, because it's easier to monitor your behavior than it is to check my heart. It's way easier to just watch your spouse and make a list of all the things they're doing wrong. That's easy. What's hard is taking an honest look at what's in you and why it's in you. So most of us don't have a strategy to guard our heart, and we get bumped and all that stuff just comes flying out. Like, I can't help it. This is who I am. This is just what happens. And the reason a lot of people don't stay in love is they think it's the other one's fault, and they never look at what's in them. So here's what we're going to do. Well, let me finish with Proverbs because I don't want to cut Solomon short. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That's 2 little sentences in the Bible, but how profound are those words? That above all else, we should guard our hearts because everything that you do is coming from there. Why are you mad all the time? Because that's what's in your heart. Why do you get jealous all the time? Because that's what's in your heart. Why do you doubt their motives all the time? Because that's what's in your heart. Why do you struggle with the same thing over and over and over and over again? Because that's what's in your heart. Before we move on from the heart, two men had a lot to say about the heart. Jeremiah said, the heart is deceitful above all things. Who can trust it? And Jesus came to give you a brand new heart. This is why it's so important you know what's in there, because it's going to come out of you. So the bottom line for tonight, and it's not the end, we still have a long ways to go. The bottom line is what's in you will come out of you regardless of who's with you. And I love the conversations that you were having about why do people fall in love, then get divorced, and then go try again with someone else. They don't think that what's in them is going to come out of them with that next person. Because that next person won't bump me the way the previous one did. That next person won't get on my nerves the way that previous person did. That next person will be different. Doesn't matter. Because you're not. Because what's in you is going to come out of you. So I want to give you a strategy. I want to give you a 2-point strategy. 2 things you can do to guard your heart. I see you taking notes. If you want these notes, they are on our app. All you got to do is go to app and there's something on there. I don't know how to make it work, but somebody does. You can find it. Just start clicking buttons. You'll see it. Here's the 2-step strategy for guarding your heart. The first thing you have to do to guard your heart is identify the emotion. Identify the emotion that's coming out. Now, I know this is where, gentlemen, y'all look at me with the glassy eyes because I, like you, struggle to identify emotions. Ladies, next slide, please, Terry. Ladies, this comes totally natural for you. You know exactly how you feel all the time. You can tell us when it started, when it stopped. You know how you feel. Guys, we don't. Am I right, gentlemen? We struggle to identify an emotion. In fact, guys basically have 2 words to describe emotion. Angry, frustrated. Those are the 2 emotions we know how to describe. I'm angry or I'm frustrated when it comes to getting bumped. You with me? So I want to just talk to the guys for a second. What we need to learn to do is add qualifiers to that. We need to learn to say, I'm mad, and here's why. And here's some words that I just kind of stuck together that we can use that would help our ladies. I'm mad because I was disrespected. I'm angry or frustrated because I was embarrassed, left out, unappreciated, betrayed, abandoned, out of control, afraid, jealous, uninformed. If we can put some qualifiers on there, then we don't have to get all, into our feelers. We don't have to worry about that. We understand angry. We understand frustrated. What we need to learn to do is put words to why. Here's why I'm angry. We can all do that. Yeah? Even Vaughn can do that. Even Daniel, you can do this. I know you can. Identify the emotion. Now here's a truth bomb for you. If you haven't figured this out yet, you need to know this. Emotions that stay secret or hidden will gain power. Emotions that stay secret or hidden get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And when you start giving that emotion a name, it will lose power. The more you check out and keep all that to yourself, the more power it gains. But as soon as you put a name to it, and you even say it out loud, it loses its power over you. That anger, that frustration, that sadness, whatever it is, it loses its hold on you when you can identify it and name it and give it a name. The truth is, most of us are going to resist identifying the emotion in our hearts because the moment you do, you lose all your excuses. The moment you identify what's in you and give it a name, you lose the excuse, well, she did that. He said this. She's always. He never. She can't. He won't. You lose excuses when you identify what's in you. Regardless of why the bump happened, you're going to struggle to identify what's in you because it's hard. It's complicated. It's messy. And you lose your excuses. So, strategy number 2. You identify the emotion and then you tell your spouse. That's it. Here's a strategy for guarding your heart in your marriage. It's super easy. When you get bumped and stuff comes out, identify what's in you and then inform your spouse. Just tell them, when you said what you said, I was angry because I was left out of the decision-making process. When you didn't tell me you were going to be late, I got scared. When you talk like that with your friends, I feel disrespected. I'm angry because I feel unappreciated. Tell your spouse. This is how you guard your heart. And 3 things about informing your spouse. This is just relaying information, not criticizing their behavior. This is just you informing them of how you're feeling. This is relaying information, not an attack. This is an opportunity for you to share an observation about you with the person who matters most to you. You with me? It's not to pick a fight. It's not to start an argument. It's not even to start a big, long conversation. It's just so that you can guard your heart, because everything you do is going to come from it. And you just, here's why this stuff is coming out, and you need to know. Whatever it is, inform your spouse. Pro tip. If your spouse loves your marriage and you enough to have that conversation with you, you better make sure you respond correctly. If this isn't something that's happened before and next week your husband or your wife comes up to you and says, remember the other day when I was so angry or I was so hurt or whatever? Well, here's why. And they have that conversation with you, man, you better not mess up what you do next. You better get it right. Now, here's what you need to do. You say, thank you, and then you shut your face.
Is this for guys and girls? Does this go both ways or what?
Bingo. It goes both ways, my brother. That's a fair question. If your spouse informs you, if she or he says, here's why I was angry, and they have that conversation with you, just say, thank you for telling me. Don't say, oh, well, that's silly. Don't say, yeah, but. Don't say, well, here's the reason why. Don't fire back. Don't say anything. Just say, thank you for telling me. And then just let it be. There's time for another conversation later, and there's probably going to be one. But what your spouse is doing is valuing you and your marriage so much that they are willing to tell you, here's why that crap came out of me. You need to know why. You with me? Handle it correctly when they do. And understand this, if you're hesitant to have that conversation, which I get, when a healthy person discovers that something they are doing is hurting someone they love, they stop. Do you experience that? Most of you, if you find out that something you are doing is hurting someone you love, you check yourself and you stop. Am I right? That's how healthy people operate. When I'm informed that what I'm doing is hurting my wife, I better stop. That's how you live. That's why your spouse is going to inform you. Here's why it came out. Here's what happened. Then you have an adjustment to make. So, before we're done, and we're almost done, I just want to give you two really hard truths, and they're going to hurt a little bit. They're going to cut a little bit. But sometimes you got to get cut to get healed. So here's the first hard truth. The first hard truth is most of the things you think are marriage problems are really heart problems. When you think about your marriage, when you think about the issues that you're having, most of them aren't marriage problems. Most of them are heart issues. Because there's something in here that has not been guarded or identified or shared. Nearly every issue, struggle, crisis, fight, debate, whatever you want to call it in your marriage, nearly all of them, you can trace it back to what's in you. And the second hard truth is your ability to stay in love has as much to do with the condition of your heart as the behavior of your spouse. We've been told that a healthy marriage, a happy marriage is dependent upon them and what they do. But the truth is, what's in you is really determining your ability to have a healthy, happy, satisfying marriage where you stay in love forever. It's a heart issue, and it's your heart issue. And so, let me read what Solomon said one more time. Solomon said, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. When it comes to your marriage, you've got to identify those things when they come out and then share them with your spouse. So we're going to stop, and next week we're going to talk about what do I do when what I expect is not what I experience. Anybody ever had that happen? Here's what I was expecting in marriage. Here's what I'm experiencing. They're not the same. We're going to talk about that next week. But I do want to just stop and say, what questions do you have? What comments do you have? Do you want to add anything to the conversation? Do you want to ask any questions? I am not a marriage counselor or a marriage expert, but I would love to hear what you got. Anybody?
You were talking about if something hurts your spouse, you'll quit doing it. And I agree with that. But we work with couples quite a bit as well. If you don't deal with why you're hurting your spouse, because there's always a reason. There's always something. If you don't deal with that, a lot of times you can't stop hurting your spouse.
Go back a few slides if you don't mind, Terry. I put a qualifier on there.
Fix that.
I put a qualifier on there, and the qualifier was healthy people.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Healthy people, when they find out that what they're doing is hurting somebody else, they stop. Not all of us are healthy.
Very
Not all of us have overcome the things we have to overcome. And so part of being a good spouse is learning to be a healthy human being. Yep. Anybody else? Question, comment, snide remark? Yes.
This always makes me think of hurt people. Hurt.
Hurt people hurt people. Isn't that true?
We preach that every
Yeah.
hurt people.
Yeah.
That's very true.
And most of the time, you don't even know, they don't do it on purpose. You think it's on purpose, it's not. What's in there, a lot of times, what's in your heart, what's in your mind is a hurt that you have gathered from the past.
Yep.
And your reaction to something that is said is totally offensive, or it is something that, here, you know what, you really need to do this, or you really need to do that. And what she is hearing, or like, you're not enough.
Hmm.
You're not enough. That's not what she's saying. With art, she is therefore
Yeah.
in a different way, or she just leaves. I mean,
I've also found it to be true that hurt people hurt the people they don't want to hurt.
It's usually the people they love the
The
most.
people they love the most are the ones we end up hurting the most.
Destroyed.
Yep.
And it is very difficult to be vulnerable with anyone. And a lot of times in a new relationship or a new marriage, you literally have your heart in your hands that someone else's. And it's terrifying. What are they going to do with it? Are they going to hurt it? Are they going to put a hurt in it so bad that I can't be fixed?
Hmm.
And a lot of that.
Yeah. Yep. Questions? Comments? Preach. Come on. Any hurt? Any hurt? Anything? All things. How is that possible?
it's possible because you're willing to work with that person. You're willing to open up your heart. Because if you don't, it's going to kill you.
Wow.
It's going to destroy you. And I don't want that.
It's really strong. Thank you. All right, I'm done if you're done. Okay, Matthew Kahn, would you pray for us?